All right, we're live here in the Behind the Bits studios. We'll call it the Behind the Bits studios now because I got this removable wall behind me and you can't see that this is a spare bedroom. So, yeah, it's a studio. Haha. I'm kind of stoked. One of my first guests on this podcast was Dobie Maxwell. I think he was episode maybe 5 or 6, and we've kept in touch. I As you listen to the intro to this podcast that comes out tomorrow, I will talk about how I've made friends with some of the folks I've talked to, and that's true. And we keep in touch and we try to help each other out when we can. But Dobie is doing something really cool. Now, if you're a comedian without a podcast, it's kind of like a dog without a bone these days. But Dobie's got a different type of podcast. It's called Just My Type. And he is hosting that with Sammy Parker, and it's about diabetes, which is, obviously it's very prevalent. But the neat thing is we've got Dobie as a type 2 diabetic and Sammy as a type 1 diabetic, and they talk about, diet, some misconceptions. The episode I listened to today was just about carbs, about how not all carbs are bad, and I just think it's really great that he's doing kind of a community service with Sammy and putting this out. And I just want to talk to him about it, so I'm going to bring him out right now. Here he is. It's Dobie Maxwell. How are you, Dobie?
Scott, I'm great. Thank you for doing this, brother. It's fun, and I never saw it coming. And those are the best projects in life.
Oh, isn't it? Isn't it? It's really great. And folks, if you're watching live, just go to justmytypepodcast.com and you can see how you can listen, subscribe, and do all the stuff that you want to do. So first, how did this happen, Dobie? How
Well,
did you get into this podcast?
they found me. I got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in 2011, and
Uh-huh.
comedians. We're on the road. We drive. We lift. The heaviest thing we lift is a microphone, which is about 12 ounces. There's no exercise whatsoever. We drink hot fudge right out of the tap, and our diet is bad, and we're just prime candidates. America, the world is prime candidates for diabetes. And they told me I had a blood sugar of 500. I said, "Is that good?" But you're
Ooh.
not going anywhere. And
Yeah.
our first episode is exchanging our stories. And Sammy is a type 1. She's wonderful, young lady. She's 22. She got diagnosed when she was 12. And it's just a whole lifestyle change, and diet and
Mhm.
exercise. And most things comedians don't talk about are now a part of my daily life.
Yeah, that's great. And just for me, because I've my blood sugar is great. Sorry about that. But
Good. No, no, don't be
what
sorry, but you don't want it.
what's the difference between a type 1 and a type 2?
Well, that's a really good question. Type 2 can be reversed. And it's
Okay.
a matter of there's a lot of technical terms. The reason they found me, they wanted to put something lighthearted and comedic. Our slogan is
Mhm.
we have fun, but we don't make fun. It's a
Yeah,
disease. When you hear it, it's like a death sentence. Oh my gosh, other
right.
people get diabetes. And type 1 it's with your pancreas and production of insulin and sugar, digesting food. It's a very complicated thing and it can be just overwhelming. So
Mhm.
Sammy actually went to school for this and she explains it. She's not a doctor, but she sure knows a lot about type 1. And type 2 is something that if like hundreds of millions of people are either pre-diabetic or qualify as type 2, and keeping
Mhm.
your sugar down and exercise, it's just a process and a daily thing. And we really appreciate the exposure. I didn't expect this at all, but I'm learning something getting back into
Yeah.
this.
I as I told you before we went live that I listened to an episode, and I have to say you and Sammy really play off each other pretty well. It's almost like you guys have known each other forever.
It's an arranged marriage. And I told her
Y-
when we met on Zoom beforehand, I said, look, you're in California. I'm in the Chicago area. Just pretend like you like me. I'll be the butt of the jokes. This is a great opportunity because nobody's really doing anything like this. We're doing it first and we're doing it best. And
Right.
it was luck of the draw. Grand slam home run. I won the lottery with her. She's a star. I want to drive her limo someday. I'll be the rodeo clown providing the jokes,
Yeah.
but she's a star.
Well, and with your radio background, you're certainly professional, and you know when to talk and when to let Sammy talk. And in podcasting, that doesn't always happen, as you know.
Oh,
and,
absolutely not.
and it's very professional. And so thinking about this podcast, I think it's fairly obvious that diabetics would get something out of it. But have you learned anything in doing the episodes that you've put out so far?
Yeah, it can be a very lonely thing being a comedian in general, but when you're a comedian with and you're diabetic, what you eat, you want to go to the grocery store, I can't eat anything in here. So we want to learn about diet, all the aspects and the facets of it so it's not so overwhelming. And I want to have comedians on too. Billy Gardell is going to be on. He was type 2 for a long time. A guy
Uh-huh.
named Chelsea Rice out of Atlanta, Georgia. He's type 1. Dave Mancarelli is a comic out of Reno, Nevada. He's a type 1. So we like to put together live comedy shows with that theme because
Mm.
if you don't have it, you know somebody that has it. It's the
Oh, yeah.
true diverse. There is no one type of people that have it. Young, old, rich, poor, white, black, Jewish and Gentile. It
Mhm.
just runs the gamut. So I'm
Right.
learning that it really does, and it does bring people together. People that normally wouldn't get together. Oh, you're diabetic. Are you type 1? Are you type 2? There's a lingo. It's a community of millions that is really unheralded, unseen. So we're trying to give some
Right.
attention to that.
Right, right. And as far as topics are concerned, I told you I listened to the one about carbs. What other topics are out and what other topics are we gonna see coming out?
Well, we're going to see doing traveling with diabetes. Not just comedians travel. A lot of people have
Mhm.
a mobile lifestyle. To eating in restaurants, very very tough. If it's not sugar, it's salt that kills you. So we're having guests on too, not just entertainment guests, but endocrinologists, planning your uh, your diet, also
Mhm.
healthcare. We got a guest coming up from England. He's a comedian in England, and he's type 1, WON. That's his name. So he's a comic who with type 1 diabetes. But how is healthcare in England versus how it is in America? And our parent company is Canada, where they have socialized medicine. So that kind of stuff
Uh-huh.
people don't think about, and we try to make the boring topics fun and light. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? Just without just
Yeah,
spewing out facts.
and that I guess that brings about the question, do different countries approach diabetes in different ways?
Well, there is money. Follow the money, and then billions
Yeah.
and trillions. There's big pharma, and they're looking to get their hand out. Now, I don't know if you
Uh-huh.
know this. Here's something I learned: the patent for insulin was came out of Canada, and the people that had the patent, they $1 is what they sold it for because they said we want to help humanity with this horrible disease. Well, that
Uh-huh.
$1 is now billions and trillions that big pharma uses, and the prices are going up all the time, and there's
Yeah.
always the meters and it's like George Jetson now. It's
Oh, yeah.
more advanced than it ever has. They started with a pig insulin, and they stuck the needle in an orange to get people out of it's completely different. It's big business right now. So
Right.
we want to
Yeah.
put the humanity side toward it.
Yeah, and I see the ads for the things you can clip to your arm instead
Yep.
of, checking your blood every day. So, I mean, there's just a lot of advances, but the especially in the type 2 area, there are ways that you can reverse it, and you and Sammy have touched on a little bit of that, and the carbs episode touched on a little bit.
Well, you don't really think about it. I had no idea when I was in it as a comedian. You go in and you have one. Do you call it pop or soda? I have to ask everybody where they live. Like
So I'm in the South now. I was in South Bend, Indiana before, and now I'm in Huntsville, Alabama, and I still call it pop.
so it's Coke down there. Everything in the South
Yeah,
is Coke. You want a
yeah,
Coke? Yeah. What
yeah.
kind?
You want
Sprite.
Pepsi Coke or Coke
Coke,
Coke?
yeah, that's the whole thing. Well, it's soda where I'm from, so whatever that is, the worst thing you can put in your body. I stopped drinking sodas about 2 years ago, and it's
Mm,
moderation is one thing, and it's just it can be so overwhelming. It just
mm,
is. And if you take care of yourself, and we want to create a community so it's not so lonely, it's not so intimidating, it's not so overwhelming. Try to have, and a lot of comedians are dealing with it too. Like, oh yeah, I was pre-diabetic. What do I do? So hopefully we can do some good with this. And thank
yeah.
you for the plug. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, and I tell you, the episode I've listened to makes me wanna dive in a little bit more. I My dad has, diabetes. He's a type 2, and maybe I can gain some knowledge to pass on to him, and maybe I can just have him listen to it.
Well, I would suggest listen to we share our diagnosis stories. It's almost like every diabetic has got their story of how they got
Yeah.
diagnosed, and I have the weirdest one ever. It's like we're keeping it short. One of my testicles was 5 times larger than the other one. Now mouth. Both of them with
Oh.
and it's just every doctor, everybody says, "Oh my gosh, that's." So I had to go into and of course, there's a gorgeous room in the emergency room, and I'm a comedian, so I have the 100% deductible, no insurance plan.
Yeah.
And what are you here for, sir? One of my so they get everybody. It's like a pit crew from Indy 500, and they're looking, and they say, "You've got diabetes. I took my blood. You got a blood sugar of 500. You're not going anywhere." I missed gigs over it. I was in the hospital 9 days. I had gangrene on my testicles, Scott. That's not a
Oh.
bit. I lost a little bit of my my plumbing, and if it would have been 2 or 3 more days, they said you'd have lost everything. Been singing soprano in the choir.
Oh,
So it is a very
wow.
dramatic way that I found out that I got it. And people say, well, my story is not that bad. So if nothing else, your father or anybody else listening to their diagnosis started saying, well, mine was a little bit less dramatic. So that's the most dramatic story that I can think of that I've ever heard.
Yeah,
So
I've
that's our
that
first episode. So Sammy tells hers, and she's a little girl, and it's very overwhelming and intimidating when you're by yourself and the doctor comes in and tells you have diabetes. You don't know what it is. You got to prick yourself with needles. I did that for a while. I was off needles in about 2 months.
mm, great.
So
Well,
it's
good
scary. I don't know
good
about you. I mean, people don't like snakes or spiders. Needles is I don't like needles at all. So that was very
yeah.
difficult to have to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good for you to get off the needles to check yourself. That's fantastic. Well, I really appreciate first of all you doing a public service like this because this is podcasts can be very self-serving like mine, and
Mhm.
your podcast is definitely for the world so that people can heal and get better and do better with their lives and live longer. So I really appreciate what you and Sammy are doing.
Likewise, we're starting a good thing, and the vibes have been great. So I owe you one, brother. Thank you for the plug. It's really nice
Yeah.
of you.
Well, thanks again for doing this. And folks, you can find Just My Type at justmytype.com and
JustMyTypePodcast.com.
Just My Type podcast. Let me put it up here.
.com. Yeah,
There we
thanks.
go.
I
Just
like
My
it.
Type podcast.com. And it's on all the apps. I found it on all the podcast apps. So it's there and easy to subscribe and listen to. And if you like it, subscribe and let them know that Scott sent you. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.